Welcome to Boundless Pursuit, a weekly podcast providing motivation, entertainment, and education to anglers and outdoorsmen. I hope that the stories you'll find here will encourage you to chase your passion more fervently, to open your mind to new opportunities and perspectives. Your engagement and feedback is critical to the growth of this show, and I would love to hear your suggestions on topics or potential guests. You can reach me at boundlesspursuitfishing@gmail.com or at my website, www.boundless-pursuit.com. That's where you'll find all related articles, media, and merchandise. Please remember, the show will gain traction from your support. Be sure to like, comment, and share this podcast to your friends and connections. I'm your host, David Graham. Now let's get on to today's episode. For some, the risk of failure that comes with the pursuit of a new species of fish in unfamiliar waters across multiple state lines is enough to keep them at home specializing in one or a few different kinds of fish. But for others, the travel bug buzzes too loudly, and the next fish, the next location is simply just the next level in the game. And for Mike Breznicky, striped bass and snakeheads close to home are awesome, but the idea of packing out the vehicle with fishing gear and the kayak is greater. And Breznicky, often accompanied by his biologist girlfriend Caitlin, spends much of the year on the road, coursing game plans for new challenging species. I'm very interested in these guys, how they weigh risk and reward, and what features that a fish must have that's enough to draw them away from their home and their pursuit. I've followed Mike Breznicky now long enough to admire his pursuits for freshwater fish like monster lake trout, musky, carp, gar, peacock bass, regular bass, and bowfin, just to name a few. And that's on top of the saltwater scene for fish like sailfish, tarpon, sharks, and barracudas. And he's doing this largely by kayak, from the shore, from boats, every which way. Breznicky is a Northeastern guy that's just simply polished his fishing skills cross-regionally for all kinds of fish. And his success is a testament to good game planning, partnerships, research, and intangible skills like grit and hard work. This is Tight Lines Philly, Mike Breznicky.
10 years dating,
That's pretty
not
cool,
married,
bro.
But she brings it up.
I don't know how you did it, but somehow, some way, it's like hard enough to even. And by the way, we're recording. I don't ever just have like a definitive start. We talk.
Oh yeah, it's
whatever I think is a good point to start. Like that's where I begin. But yeah, dude. I follow a lot of awesome people on like Instagram, social media. Like people like. I feel like I use social media for what it's supposed to be used for. So to like. I don't know, like I want to be encouraged to go do trips, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like
learn a lot, meet good people.
I don't want to follow somebody that is like a pro, you know what I mean? Like I mean,
right.
I like to see those guys, it's cool, but I want to follow somebody that's like, man, like it, this just seems like some dude that's out there getting after it and catching fish and like then I see you hauling your kayak and hauling your gear in the back of your car all over the country catching all these giant fish. I'm like, hell yeah. Like, this dude's awesome. Like, that's the kind of stuff I like to see because it encourages me to get out there and do more of that. But
the everyday guy, 9 to 5 job and trying to get it done on the weekends.
Exactly.
But, that's why I stick to the 10-foot kayaks because they fit really nice in the back of my work van.
Nice.
So I just take the chop saw out of there, take the compressor out of there and then slide those suckers right in and we're good to go. We're on the road. So.
Well, you live a type of lifestyle that I think when it comes to finding a mate is like such slim pickings.
Right.
It's like a game of opportunities. And like you work and then you isolate yourself on your free time. You work and you isolate yourself in the middle of nowhere. Like you're not at like the bar. You're not like a social setting. So I'm like thinking to myself, man, like you're another multi-species guy. I'm like, it can be a pretty lonely world, I feel like, for like guys that like to do that kind of fishing.
Right. I'm not at the bar or whatever. I got lucky. I met Kate at the bar 10 years ago, but
there you go.
But it is
One
nice.
And done.
It's hard. Yeah, right. Seriously. She enjoys fishing as much as I do. And it's hard enough for like a 5'8" guy on Tinder holding pictures of bass. So I don't think I'd be doing too hot, like, right now, trying to keep up with the fishing and stuff. But yeah, it's worked out great, and the teamwork aspect, keeps us kind of, if I'm not sure if I want to do a big trip or getting the energy to like go together, having someone else with you to like kind of pull the the strings and help get you moving on it. It's good.
Well, I can totally relate because I mean, at least we've never spoken before, only on the internet, which is like
via text. I asked you, I was like, this guy needs to help me find long nose gars. So I was like, this is the guy. let me text him real quick.
But you can judge enough based on some things to know like what people are about, and I'm like, okay, so this is another multi-species guy, and I kind of feel like I exist. We probably have a lot of parallel interests or the way that we live just between our job and what we like to do. But I also know it's like, hell, man, like at least for me, it's hard enough to even find another dude that I want to like go fishing with, because it's like, they don't have the stamina, they don't have the same interest. They have the interest, they have the stamina, but the experience level is kind of a hindrance because now I'm stuck teaching them that, and I just don't like to hang out with other people all that much. So it's like hard enough to even find a dude. So like the fact that you like, have that kind of partnership, one, it's like, it's like you want to have that side too, like a personal life where you have relationships, but then you also want to have your fishing. And like, if you can blend all that together, man, you got it made. That's pretty awesome. And it's a great partnership. I totally agree. It's anytime you can share that with the person that, this ain't the love guru podcast here.
Right.
I mean, I'm married and I got kids. I get it a little bit, but that's freaking cool, dude.
That's sweet.
So,
I mean, it gimes me an excuse too, because if people hit me up to go fishing and stuff, and I'm trying to do my own thing, or I'll just be like, oh man, just me and Kate are going this weekend. I can't bring you to that spot.
yeah,
it's a good excuse. But I have a good I have like 3-4 close buddies that have like similar interests. Not everyone's super into the kayak thing, so I try to get out with them, bank fish here and there, with those guys. But I'd say there's probably like maybe only 1 or 2 real close friends that really get after it. We go on road trips, do the multi-species kayak fishing kind of thing. So
the kayak thing is kind of like what really brought me a higher level of interest, even having the conversation too, because I looked through your page, and just to kind of set the tone for anybody that's listening, like they're like, who the hell is this guy? You're just some dude that I found on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like I'm learning about you here. But man, it's like I see you constantly on the move, loading up gear, throwing a kayak in the back of a car and going. And I know that like that sounds a lot more willy-nilly than it really is. But like after you've made these kind of trips a few times, I've done the same thing.
Right.
I kind of learned that like you're really gambling on a lot of finances, on luck. There's like you're going into unknown waters. But then I see you with these huge stripers. I see you on the snakehead scene. I see you down here in my neck of the woods in Florida. I see you along the coast catching sharks. Like you're all over the place. Out west, I've seen y'all doing that alligator gar stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this dude freaking gets after it. But I am curious, just like, when I see somebody that decides to go more the kayak route, I kind of wonder, I don't know, like why that as opposed to like a John boat, as opposed to like an actual like motorized vehicle. Like what advantages has that really afforded you for the kind of fishing that you're doing?
I mean, we do have a John boat also, but I think I just enjoy kayak fishing a lot more than any other, way of getting really out there. I just like the fact that you're kind of close to the water, you're stealthy. You can kind of get in a little areas and stuff where the boat guys can't. I mean, there's some spots not too far from us where there's some decent pike fishing in New Jersey. And, the kayak's kind of the perfect way to get, kind of deeper into those stretches of river, where guys on a John boat, you come across a tree across the river or something like that, and you're not really going any further, but you can pull that kayak up over the tree, get into some water that really doesn't get touched that often. And I just think rigging kayaks is cool as hell too. I mean, I just like having electronics on it. I mean, we have the pedal drives, for saltwater mainly, but I have my bona fide that I've rigged up with like a motor guide trolling motor on the front with spot lock for lake trout. And I got, my electronics on there. And I just feel like I'm in a little spaceship when I'm on that thing, like sitting in 150 feet of water, just video game fishing off of that little rig. And I freaking love it,
I totally get that. I think I'm sort of the same way to where I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just a money thing. Like I would love to have a boat and I always get like real close to it. And then I think like, that expense every month or like,
they say the best day of owning a boat is when you buy it and you sell it, Yeah.
But, well, for me, I'm just like, that is going to basically ensure that I don't do very much traveling. Because one, like the money's going to be cut into a lot. Like that's a lot of funds that could go towards other trips. And then two, it's like you don't get a boat and then not use it. And then so it's like you know that you're going to become pretty much married to the boat and married to your local waters, which is fine. It's totally fine.
Right.
Not necessarily my style, but more than a kayak. I don't know. I'm like the guy that breaks stuff and like ruins things.
Dude, the brand new boat, you get one scratch on that thing and you're like, oh shit, but
well, definitely boats. And I'm not mechanically savvy. He give me something so simple and I'm like gonna go get just bent over,
Yeah, your battery's not, connected, and you're like, it's broke, it's totaled, it's done.
Yeah, submarine mechanics just gonna bend me over and take me for all I'm worth, and I'm like, nah, I can't have that. But even the
bust
kayaks,
out another G, man. I can't see getting a boat like spending the money on a big boat unless I'm gonna be like running off to the canyons off of New Jersey or doing something that I can absolutely not do on a kayak or reasonably not do on a kayak. That's the only way I could see spending that much money on it,
It's definitely real tempting where I'm at in Southwest Florida because it's like, I know I need to be able to expand my reach to get to some of these certain types of, I don't know, more premier and more powerful fish that are just going to destroy me in small watercraft. But the kayak thing, I love kayak fishing. It's like one of those types of genres that's always interested me, but I haven't quite got into because while they're almost like floating Swiss Army knives now, like you can rig them out to be, amazing pieces of technology. I've leaned more into the canoe thing only because I'm like, I feel like I'm going to spill my stuff over the sides of my kayak.
Dude, I love your canoe. When I first started following you on Instagram, I'd see you dragging that thing through like the cypress swamps and everything. And I was like, this guy gets after it with his canoe, catching big ass bowfin and.
It's because I'm very disorganized. I just need a large. It's a big floating storage bin, and I just throw crap in there.
Right.
Like, if I drop my fish and it flops around the bottom of the canoe, I'm okay with that. But at the same time, there's like parallels there between canoe fishing, kayak fishing. It affords you a little bit more stealth. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking into it too much. But it's like I don't know. I feel more in tune with the environment when I'm like moving in small watercraft like that. When you're you're right there, the water's edge is like next to you.
You're part of it. Yeah. It's just the experience of it,
Yeah. And it's just, there's obviously all the convenience factors, but at the same time, you've pulled some really big fish. And again, I look at the variety and that's what has taken me back. Like when I look at your page and I scroll again, it's like, a lot of people will put on Instagram, it's just like your highlight reel. It's just like, okay, this is a whole bunch of big fish. But like, what, where's the story here? So I guess that what I wonder when you got fish from Florida, fish from Texas, fish from, I don't even know where, I immediately wonder, okay, well, where's home to this guy? Like, what's home base for you? Like, what are your home waters? What's like local to you? If you were going to go fishing this weekend and just be within an hour of home, what are you typically fishing for?
Well, so like the good thing about I'm located right outside of Philadelphia. I would say the fishing in this vicinity of Philadelphia is not necessarily that great. During certain times of the year, there'll be striper in the Delaware River. There's like a walleye scene going on. There's a snakehead scene that's actually more and more productive in the vicinity of the city. But I think the fact that we're just kind of so centrally located is what really is, attributes to like a lot of the diversity that you're seeing, that the stuff that we're going for and posting. I think within an hour and a half of where we live in any direction. I could be, I could be in the Raritan Bay striper fishing. I could be snakehead fishing. I could be in the Poconos going for, brown trout. Pretty much an hour and a half. And then also I'm, 4 hours to Virginia, 4 hours to the Great Lakes. So we got,
nice.
The tributary season's coming up. So I'm pretty stoked on that. We're going to do the whole, brown trout thing, steelhead, king salmon and stuff. And then, September, I think we're going to try to do like a Virginia trip for reds. So, but it's sweet that we have, we're kind of just in the middle of everything, not too much literally in my backyard. I got like a little stocker stream in the backyard, some little stocked rainbows and stuff. But yeah, I mean, like I said, if we're taking if we're having an easy weekend, say, you just want to go have a fun time, we'll throw the kayaks in, go for snakeheads, go throw some swim baits around and frogs around.
That's what I gathered when I looked. It seemed like there was a definitely a common theme between some of the snakehead fishing, the stripers. I'm like, okay, he's, I think I know the general area where you're at, but you're like, that's interesting. You're kind of like in a perfect corridor for somebody that likes traveling. You're within range of everything.
Yeah, I'd say we drive probably 6 to 8 hours a weekend. Just fishing. We're usually fishing every Saturday and Sunday. Which again is like a godsend that I have a girlfriend that's cool with that. We're skipping out on like family stuff to go fishing and like making excuses. And I'm like, we got to see the family sometimes. But if the weather's right, if the barometric pressure is looking good for brown trout, or if, the wind's looking good to get out on a big lake or something like that, we're like, let's try to sneak out there, Well,
that's where some of my questions come into, like, the dynamic of y'all's partnership. This isn't relationship stuff. This is like strictly as a fishing partnership. When I think of like that style of fishing, how much of it is like spontaneity versus like how much of it is like pre-planned and scheduled? Like how much of it is like, oh shit, I just feel like going and doing this, and how much of it is like, oh, we got to hit this window and this migration's happening right now.
Well, it's definitely Kate's a fisheries biologist, and a lot of it is, there's the aspect of, we haven't gone for, this certain species in a month or 2 months. I want to go for that, but it really is kind of planned in that probably every, Wednesday through Thursday, we're looking at the forecast, and a lot of it is based off of, weather conditions and what we think the best bite we're going to get on is going to be. So that is planned to some extent. Cause I've had enough days where we're just like, oh hell, I feel like going lake trout fishing or something. And it's just like 0 wind, bright and sunny, and the fish are just not biting. So we do kind of, we try to plan for, what's going to be biting at a certain time. But yeah, spring and fall are obviously like the times of year where it's like, stuff's migrating, and it's like, that's what we're doing. It's spring, we're trying to get after the striper, early when they're moving. And like I said, tributary season's right around the corner. So I'm going to be putting a lot of miles on the van, driving up to like Western New York and stuff like that, coming up. So, but yeah, we're always like, we're like a weatherman, essentially. We're always looking at freaking, weather underground and watching the barometric pressure and all this shit. So, that's the game.
Are y'all like on the same exact wavelength, or is it more like a yin yang type of deal towards like, oh, you complete me? Like, is she more the analytical one and you're more the like it, or do y'all have different roles, or is it pretty much you're the same? Cause I'm thinking like there's gotta be a who's who here. Like, I'm not as much the analytical one, but that's where her strength is. But I am the one that's got the resolve, and when plans, like when things don't go to plan, I'm able to adapt and overcome real quick. Or is it y'all both pretty much the same way?
After 10 years, we kind of like merged fishing minds, but I'd say she's more of like the like free spirit, like, oh, we'll just go have a good time, we'll catch some fish, and I'm like, but I think this is gonna be better, I think the bite's gonna be better if we do this kind of thing.
Because that's interesting. Because I know you mentioned that she's like in fisheries biologist. So like immediately, not maybe naively, I jumped to this conclusion. I'm like, okay, she must be like the data driven, like analytics and like reading scientific papers type of person. That's what.
She does have that side to her too, but
okay,
I think she does
it's
it
good
so
to
much
have that in your back pocket, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, she does that so much at work. I think that she will bring up. She'll like text me and be like, "Hey, like, look, conditions, pressure's dropping. Like, we should go out for browns or whatever." But I think she does it so much at work that she likes to kind of just relax on the weekend. Go out, sit on the boat.
Yeah.
Catch some fish.
Well, that's cool. I just think just like competitively, or from a, I don't know, from a competitive, not competing against each other, but just being more competitive as an angler and having a reason to adapt and like evolve as an angler. I think it's a lot harder to do that when you're alone, existing like in your own little echo chamber.
Exactly.
And you don't have somebody to give pushback and you don't have somebody to give an idea of other looks. So I think just as a guy who gets out and chases different species, that's got to give you a massive advantage. But then I also wonder how often that's leading into like an argument. Like, what I mean?
There's some competitive stuff. We're both just happy. If someone's looks up to a good fish and, landing a good fish, it's all smiles and hugs. If one of us is catching way more fish that day than the other one, there'll be a little bit of like, all right, you gotta fucking relax. You gotta take a seat for a second. But I would say there's absolutely an advantage of whether it be like you're fishing, your best bud that you're going out with every day and fishing with that, you're trying different tactics. I mean, we're never fishing the same lure ever, unless something's like absolutely killing, on purpose. We'll be throwing different colors, different style lures, fishing different depths. Cause that's definitely an advantage. You figure out a lot quicker what's working, what's not working, as compared to being like, I'm confident in, this stick bait, this color, this sexy shad. I'm not fucking throwing anything else. Yeah. That's it. You know what I mean? So like, it definitely affords us, a lot more experimentation. I think that definitely, plays a factor in, our success.
Now, and again, the type of work she does, I scrolled through some of y'all's posts and I saw one where it looked like you were actually on location in Texas, Louisiana, somewhere out that way, related to I think the very reason for being there was work related, and maybe it was like had something to do with like an oil spill.
Yeah, there was she was out in Texas. This is about a year and a half ago. There was like some sort of a barge spill, and they actually sent her out to collect fish tissue samples, and basically testing for like benzene and PFOs and PFAS, which is like, that's that shit that you find in like firefighting foam and stuff like that. So they were in the Houston shipping channel, and they were gill netting for fish for samples, but she also got to do quite a bit of like hook and line sampling, which I was pretty jealous of. I stayed home for that one, but she's catching alligator gar and
that's the one I saw.
Yeah. And then so she's down there doing that, and then she ended up making good friends with the captain who took her out down there, that her company had hired essentially. So I think a month or two later, we ended up reaching out to him, and we ended up going back down and staying with him down at his fish lodge down there, and catching big black drum, red drum, alligator gar. I love that. Was the only time I've ever been in Texas, and I absolutely loved it.
That's like my I don't know. I guess I like Florida better because it's where I live, but it was like Texas and Florida, like my two states. But I saw that. I was like, man, I wonder if that means like, maybe some travel expenses are paid off. Like, oh, this is work related. I'm thinking like, if I'm her, I'm like writing off all my fishing trips.
Dude, she
tax
was
write-offs. Like,
I'm at
this
home.
This is research.
Right. I mean, I was at home freaking watching the cats eating microwave pizza, and she's getting like steak and lobster dinners down there on the company card,
nice,
chilling in hotels, catching alligator gar. So she gets some perks of the job.
Oh, geez. Well, so y'all's travels. I mean, at what point? This is kind of like I've had a few other similar guys like this on, and it's like I always wonder, like, at what point did you get? I don't want to say the travel bug, but like it sounds like to me, and based off your photos, like the immediate area around where you live is already a very dynamic fishery. Like you've got some
Right.
awesome stuff. The snakehead thing, I'm all about. Like I would have a hard time even getting away from just doing that every weekend.
I know
Um,
there's a lot of guys that just want to go for snakehead. Or bass, and there's nothing
yeah,
wrong with that. I actually, appreciate guys that really just hunker down and put all the eggs in one basket and get really freaking good at it. But
right. But then at the same time, it's like you see so many anglers who I don't know. It's they just don't expand out. And I wonder if there's just more people like that just sort of exist. I don't know, under the radar. But at what point, or were you always this way? Did you kind of, I don't know, incorporate that into your fishing more? Like at
I
what point
mean,
do you start being like, man, I need to travel
I,
down to
I
Florida. I
literally,
need to.
I think I've said this before, but I mean, I have like, ADD with fishing. I don't think I can do, 2-3 weeks in a row of the same thing, or I'm going crazy. I think, back in the day, it would be a lot of just catfishing and carp fishing and shit like that. But once we started really kind of wanting to catch, more in different species, it just ballooned into this thing where every year it's like, so I want to do something different. And then we got into the fly fishing thing like, a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I can kind of revisit some fish that I'm very familiar with, already,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
on gear, and try to give myself like make it a little more difficult. And it's just this whole new thing to explore. But I think that's just the beauty of the sport. I don't understand guys that aren't really, like I said, I appreciate guys that get good at one thing, but I don't really understand when there's like almost this never ending possibilities with the sport of fishing. I don't understand how you can just do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd kind of lose my mind, with it, but that's just me. Everyone's different strokes for different folks. But, I like setting new goals every year. New species, new ways of catching them on lighter tackle, everything like that. But yeah, it's just it keeps it interesting, keeps it fun.
Yeah,
You only get one
I
life.
totally agree. It's like I look at every species of fish as another like point of measurement for my skill and adaptability as an angler. Like it's another, not to sound cliche, but it's like another puzzle to solve. It's another thing to like
Right.
have a battle of wits with. Yeah, I'm trying to outsmart this thing that's got a peanut-sized brain and a
they're,
memory
they're
that
smart. They're
lasts.
pretty smart for
Yeah,
having a peanut-sized brain.
yeah. But it's but I totally agree. But at the same time, there's millions of species of fish, and you're not chasing all of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're not out there, at least based off what I've seen, micro fishing for little
Yeah.
stuff.
I'm not micro. Yeah. I appreciate that as well. Trying to get,
Yeah, I do
but
too, and I
I'm
may
not
even
trying to
try
catch them
to.
all.
I may even try to get one of those guys on. I don't know yet,
Yeah.
but I did circle this one point because like there has to be something about the fish that draws you out. Like what
Right.
qualities are you needing a fish to have that's going to pull you across, state lines and
Right. I
get
mean,
you traveling that far?
it's you'd look at Instagram and you'd say like for pretty much everybody, you'd be like, oh, like, everyone's after big fish. And that's kind of the case. It's not always about like size, but I definitely, the saying, the tug is the drug. Like
Mhm.
that's all I love hearing the drag go off. I want to have a big animal that I don't know what it is, or I have a good idea of what it is, but under the water, fucking on a thin line,
Yeah.
and then pulling me on my kayak. Like that's what it's all about. That's probably, the happiest you'll ever find me is getting towed around out there. But we do tend to go for a lot of predatory fish. Um, I just think they're freaking cool, man. I mean, like, you got an apex predator, something that's, to some extent rare, or hard to catch, size wise, maybe, or elusive, but at the same time, I know, as I see you carp fishing and stuff like that. That doesn't have to be a predatory fish. I appreciate, carp a lot just because I mean, they're smart. They're smart as hell. You know, they're powerful fish. I don't think they get a lot of respect in the United States, really, but
Yeah, well, that's the silly thing is I love carp fishing, but you got to think we have species like native species that are almost identical to a carp.
right.
But I get it. It's like, you have fish that are gluttonous feeders that will eat something half their body length, and then on the same side, and that might be like a bullhead,
Right,
that's 12 inches long trying to eat a 7-inch long bait. And on the flip side of that, you could go chase something like a grass carp that can be 60 pounds,
right.
but you have to dumb your gear down so small.
Oh yeah, you're using like a little ball of bread and 8-pound test or something.
That has always been interesting to me because you have to compensate for their sheer size and strength with this small gear in order to secure the bite. And it's like, man, this is
grass carp's actually on the list for me. It's hard to find in Pennsylvania. There's like little private ponds and crap. I don't really want to sneak into places, but
with regards to grass carp, I've played that game a lot. That you talk about a fish that will drive you nuts. Because you've got like the pond dwelling grass carp, or the ones that live in like the canals in South Florida. It's like they're just not the same monsters like the ones that you see in wild rivers. Like I don't want to call them wild fish because I don't know, the overwhelming majority of them were all farm raised, but like,
are they able to breed? Are they triploid, or are they?
I think it's like anything else. Like I come from a manufacturing background, and it's like when we're manufacturing any product is going to have some percentage of quality failure,
right?
A failure rate. So if they're producing 100 million grass carp in a brood, I guarantee you they have an acceptable level of failure rate for like whatever their process they're putting them through to sterilize them. There's no way it's 100%. But then you think, like, what are the odds that two fertile fish are going to find each other in the wild? It's just really, I don't know, it's slim. But man, and I know I sent you kind of in the same direction when you had asked about longnose gar. I grew up around the Santee Cooper system. There are grass carp in like Lake Moultrie and Lake Marion that will blow your mind.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah.
Astonishingly big, like remarkably giant grass carp. And these things are obnoxiously weary and difficult fish to like contend with. Like to get these things on rod and reel it will drive you insane because they're massive.
They got great eyesight too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, they're so keenly like aware of movement. I don't know if it's their lateral line. I don't know what it is, but I would remember fishing out there. I'm sure the bass fishermen, this is probably where a lot of the contention comes from. But if you drop a pair of pliers on the bottom of an aluminum boat, you just blew out 300-yard radius of water because they just explode off, scare
They're
everything.
So wary. I mean, it's crazy for such a big fish that you think it has probably no natural predators when it gets to that size.
Yeah. I never understood why is like the wild ones, the ones in the wild, more, I say wild again, like the more natural lake systems, river systems. Oh God, you talk about a fish that'll drive you crazy. But
well, I'll probably be hitting you up again for grass carp if I can't find a good fishery for them up here. But and again, I got to tell you, man, that longnose gar I got was that of all the fish I've caught this year. I know we both have a kind of like a love for rough fish, and I really liked what I was looking through your profile and reading your blogs and stuff. Seeing bowfin and seeing all kinds of stuff that people don't typically go towards. I always thought that like big longnose gar were just prehistoric. They're so badass. I almost like them more than alligator gar. Just something about you don't see them as much. I guess they're considered less of a game fish, but I got to say, I think that longnose that I caught this spring might have been my favorite fish this year that I've caught.
Yeah, well, that was a really gnarly looking one. It's like all dark and like wild looking. I was like, damn, I'm jealous of that. Like
we were banging out like 20 inches and stuff left and right, and that was a fun trip, man. I mean, we were in the bait shop down there trying to pick up some shiners or whatever. I had the fly rod with the some nylon rope flies. I didn't really have a good shot on that trip of like sight casting to them where with the conditions where we were fishing. But it was funny. Everyone you'd be like, what are you going for, bass? And I'd say gar, and They look
I
at you
learned a lot.
They look at you cross-eyed down there, man. They're like, garfish? What the?
Yeah.
What do you want? What are you doing with them? I'm like, I just want to catch them, man.
Yeah. I learned. No, what you need to say is, I'm going to bash them over the head. Where can I find these things? They'll send you right to the
and then I'm
hotspot.
going to catch blue cats with them. I'm going to cut them up, catch some blue cats, you know. But we caught our first blue cat too, you know.
Oh, okay.
There as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was cool, man. That was
man, when I saw y'all's photos at the one spot, that area that I told you about, I got so jealous. Like, that's like one of my, I never really caught I used to catch a lot of grass carp there too at a certain time of year.
Oh, right.
But yeah, that was like one of my all-time favorite spots. Like, I used to take my kids out there. Like, it was pretty easy. At least it used to be pretty easy spot to catch them. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about something like a long-nosed gar, again, just staying on topic with challenging yourself and be more well-rounded as an angler. You think about like the industry and what's been like designed by the fishing industry to help people catch fish. It's based on like lures, the mechanics of the hook, the engineering of all the hardware that we use is not designed for a fish with that kind of
man.
bone structure.
I mean, I had done some research on them, and I'm looking at like what kind of hooks to get when we're getting ready to go out for them, and I was like, all right, well, a small treble makes sense, but I'm like, you got to let them eat the bait forever, and I'm like, I don't want to kill them, so
yeah,
I ended up picking up these tiny circle hooks. I think I texted you this, and you were like, oh, that's not gonna work that good, but we probably lost 70% of the fish that took our bait, even waiting. But I think the ones we did catch, I think half of them, the like line was just wrapped around their top jaw, and then the circle hook had like somehow grabbed onto the line and it kind of lassoed the.
Had that happen. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if they're line shy, so we're using like 6 or 8 pound test for them too, and it was just real fun, like super light drag, and just letting them eat it for freaking half an hour. And
that's part of the fun with them is like, man, like how can I up my hookup ratio on these things? Just like this, it's just you have to factor in a percentage of failure. And then like if you're the type of guy that just likes to push themselves, like, okay, how can I decrease that? But yeah, smaller hooks with them will always work better for me. But it's like one of those ones where it's like, you're going to be missing them.
And there's not really like a market for it, right? I mean, like there's not like companies that are making like, little J hooks that have nylon rope attached to it.
To my knowledge, there's nothing on the market that, you can go on like Etsy and find some guy that's making gar lures out of his garage. But, if you start talking about the nylon rope, which is such a fascinating way to catch a fish, you think about like that, like how many types of lures exist out there that are exclusive to one type of animal? Like, there's like the nylon rope is specifically designed for one fish on the planet. And I always thought that was pretty neat. It's like the only other thing I can think of like that is like those squid jigs.
Right.
For like
with like the crazy like skirt hooks on them. But I think there's a good long-nosed gar fishery, a lot closer than that spot to us, Chesapeake watershed. So I think that's another thing we're going to try to get after more. And that's all, that's like snakehead habitat. It's all real shallow, swampy stuff. So I'm going to, we've been talking about doing some trips, trying to get them on the fly, in the Chesapeake watershed. So,
well, I have been there and I have firsthand knowledge of fishing that watershed for snakeheads and seeing the gar. And all I can tell you is, I don't know if you're familiar with guys like Grant Alvis or Josh Dolan, very similar type of people, similar type of fishing. I don't know if y'all are connected, but that's like their home base. Like,
gotcha.
When I went up there, I fished with those guys. Good God, you wouldn't believe how many long-nosed gar. You just have to make sure, do not go there when they're like it's in spawn.
Right.
It will drive you insane.
Like May up here, right? Or something.
Yeah. And you'll see millions of them. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. And I've
heard that you can I've heard people say you can literally walk walk on their backs. You know what I mean?
Yes. You could literally reach down when we were out there snakehead fishing, it might have been earlier this year. I'd hold my rod in the water and try to loop-de-loop my like line around their snout as they drove by, as they swam by. You can poke these things. It was ridiculous. But yeah, man. So I kind of wrote this down and underlined it about the risk of failure. And I think that that's a big contributing factor to why people don't go do that kind of fishing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you can put miles on your vehicle. You can budget it, right? Like, you might be the type that's like me, sleeping out of your car or getting a cheap Airbnb. You know, it's easy to do cheaply, but there's always that like underlying that dark looming cloud of failure. The potential of failure is always there, and I think that keeps people away. It's like, man, I got to drive all the way 3 states away and go after this fish I've never caught, and
do what's comfortable, and go 30 minutes to your local lake, and
so like, how are you? I don't know, man. Like, this is kind of one of those open field questions, but like, you got to have like a research process in place. So it's like, when you identify a fish that you said it's like the tug is a drug, and say, all right, here's a fish that gets big, is strong, is interesting looking, has some unique characteristics. I want to go chase this thing. At some point, you got to get on, like, I don't know what you're doing. Google, YouTube. What are you using to make sure that you're the most prepared you can be?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot. Like, I'd say, like, we spend as much time during the week, looking, researching stuff and watching YouTube videos and stuff as we do fishing on the weekends. I think, there's that question, there's that, that thing of like how much of fishing is, skill versus luck. And I think the big thing is just knowledge is everything. You got to know what you're targeting. You got to know what conditions they like. That's probably the most important thing. If you know where the fish is going to be favoring to be holding, and like, where the body of water they're going to be in and what they're feeding on at that time of the year, that's worth, in my opinion, 1,000 times over just time on the water. Everyone's like, there's no substitute for time, time on the water, casting, covering water. But I'd rather, take 100 casts in a spot where I've researched it thoroughly than just go out there, drive 250 miles and just hope for the best and just hope it all works out. And I get lucky, with a fish being there and everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is like the fear of failure should be the driving factor to make sure you're prepared, because it's like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's true.
Like, fishing is a game of opportunities, but like, your preparation has to be in sync with the opportunity, because you can show up super duper ass prepared with 342 lures and 19 rods, but you're the complete and total wrong environment.
Exactly.
Or you can show up to an environment of water. This has happened to me on trips. This happened to me on alligator guard trips. And you see fish everywhere.
Just rolling everywhere.
Hundreds of giant fish. And you can't catch the bait.
They're just, man.
You ain't got bait. You're not prepared.
It's those goddamn carp, man. They're too smart.
And so it's like, your preparation has to meet the opportunity. And then I feel like it all just falls into place. But it also makes me wonder, you say that you're driving all these hours every weekend, you're launching kind of some of these ambitious campaigns. Have you had any trips where you showed up and just got your ass whooped? Like, have you got any good failure stories for me? Or for the most part, have you been able to grind it out at the end?
I mean, there's been plenty of times where we've, made a commitment in a drive and failed. I think usually, thank God it's nothing like major. It's not like, when we go down to the Florida Keys in the spring and stuff like that, we're catching fish, and it might not be the best trip ever, but it's not a complete, failure. I think usually we catch some fish. I can't, I would consider failure just being like, you're going home completely empty handed and stuff like that. And I don't want to say, make it sound like we're always catching fish, because we do get skunked a lot. But it's usually just, if we're just on a little weekend trip, I'm driving an hour, 2 hours up to the Poconos to go for brown trout or something like that. And they're just not biting that day. But luckily, I don't think I've had any trips where I'm spending thousands of dollars end up in complete heartbreak. You know what I mean? It's going to happen. Now that we had this conversation, literally the next trip I plan, it's going to happen. I'm going to text you and be like, yo, man, it happened.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I'm a firm believer of like the dark spirits that be, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what? I got a wood table right in front of me, dude. I'm not going that sucker right now.
Yeah. Never tell people you got the trip coming up. Like,
dude, we had
just be a mystery.
We had like a charter with Captain Eric Kerber, who's like a lot of people know him in the tri-state area here. But we got to the dock and we're going for mahi, and I'm like, yo, dude, I just bought a vac sealer, some vac bags yesterday. And he's like, why did you do that? He's like, now we're not going to catch any fish because you just said you caught, you bought a vac sealer, So yeah. It's like, you can't say anything, man, before you go.
You love the superstitions.
You
love the superstitions of an angler. That's because that's pride speaking, because failure can never be your fault. You know what I mean? It's like something.
It's my shoes were untied, dude.
You wore the wrong pair of socks.
I'm not super superstitious. Like I'm not. I'll get a banana at Wawa in the morning. I won't bring it on the kayak, but I'll eat a banana in the morning or something for breakfast. I'm not.
The banana thing doesn't bother. I'm not about that banana one. The only one that I'm a little bit like that is like, I don't like to promote that I have like a trip coming up.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't want a bigger audience for my failure if I fail. I'm like, I'm just gonna like ninja into this, and then one day I'm just gonna like blast people with pictures.
I completely feel you on that. I know when we were going down to the Keys, I usually don't start posting anything about it until I'm like a week into the trip. The tackle shop guys up the street from me, like they know that I'm going away or whatever, and he'll text me and be like, you guys catching anything? You know what I mean? Because I'm not posting anything. And I'm like, I just like to make sure I have a little buffer, at least something. I don't want to be like, epic road trip coming up and, and then literally just not post anything.
Post a sunset.
I know. It's, it's an ego thing with social media and shit, but it hurts. It burns if you're going to, all your, the people you talk to and stuff are seeing that, you're promoting this thing and then it's just complete belly flop. So I do give myself a little leeway. I like to run like, a week backlog of like posts and whatnot, Well,
so what is one of the further reaching trips you've taken? I mean, you're this guy from Pennsylvania, and I know you just mentioned going to the Keys, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, how far away from home have you gone thus far? Like, this far into it, what's been like, I don't know, your biggest like most ambitious trip thus far, would you say? Furthest from home, biggest like key target, that sort of thing.
Gotcha. So pretty much, I mean, for the most part, we just fish from everywhere from, Lake Ontario to Key West. I haven't done a ton of fishing out west. We have some stuff planned coming up this spring. I'm hoping to get out to Costa Rica and do some kayak fishing out there. And then there's some other like kind of oddity trips and target species that I have planned. But for the most part, it has just been kind of like the East Coast of the United States. We haven't done a ton. We haven't gotten out of the country in a couple of years. So that's definitely something that's on the radar to do, coming up.
Yeah. Well, I never, at the time that this episode drops, I will have been out of the country for my first time. But yeah, I've never been out of the country up until now, speaking. But so I think of that like your Keys trip. Was that the first time y'all had been there, or is this something you do pretty frequently? Because I remember seeing the posts and when you were kind of promoting that trip a little bit, and I saw like the tarpon out of the kayaks, and like the first thing I think is like, man, that looks like that bridge where the giant like hammers always take the tarpon. Like
we were pretty close to Bahia Honda, so
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like that was a great trip. I've probably been to the Keys 6 or 7 times. We used to go down on foot a lot. We were familiar with the bridge fishing in the area and stuff like that. And then 2 years ago, we decided to start driving down with the kayaks. Loading the van up with there's like almost no room because I'm trying to pack tents. 30 rods. Tackle, the kayaks, the seats and stuff like that. But it's so like, that was the second time going down there. and we basically would just camp on the beach in Big Pine Key there, and targeting barracuda in the flats and everything like that. Tarpon fishing from the bridges. Doing a little bit of shark fishing and stuff like that. But
yeah,
that's I love it down there. But I think after a couple of years, we're trying to do something different this spring. So looking forward to maybe doing Costa Rica. Thailand's a big one on my list as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm really.
What's your target there?
I kind of want to. Like the giant snakehead. I'd love to go for like Mekong catfish and stuff like that. I would. I've been looking at that Gilham's resort. I know that's kind of cheating, but dude, that place looks so dope.
Yeah, I've been following their page. Well, you know what? Like when it comes to Mekong catfish, I don't even think you can catch them in the wild anymore.
My idea of it is that basically it's so overfished there. Yeah, that a lot of it is like this, like
maybe those big stingrays,
right?
But it seems like at least with the Mekong catfish, that seems more like you almost have to go to one of these lakes,
right? They just don't really exist, or at least they're extremely rare. The larger ones to find that because everything gets pounded there. For the markets, but. I would say if we were talking like dream trips, I'd love to get out to like at some point in my life, number one would probably be going for time in Mongolia. Would be like,
that's a cool one.
I just think they're freaking probably one of the coolest fish. I love them. And then I also have this kind of like obsession with Napoleon wrasse too. And I just want to,
dude, those things are badass.
Dude, they're so sick. Cool. I gotta, at some point I gotta, get out to the Indo-Pacific and do that too. So
yeah. Well, anytime you start having like the bucket list conversation, like the podcast just sort of like explodes into like this directionless conversation, but it's like the funnest stuff, right? Because we can all dream. Like it's a fun thing to dream about, and everybody's got theirs. But like on that same wavelength too. Like the Napoleon wrasse is awesome. The one that I've been looking at lately are those big giant bumphead parrotfish. Have you seen those? They call them bumpies.
Yeah. That's like kind of like in the same bucket as the Napoleon wrasse.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's a bad looking animal. I have so many. My bucket list is massive. Like it's so big. But it's just funny. You just wonder why more people, again, it's like one of these great mysteries of like the North American angler, how few people have ambitions that go beyond their state lines or like their category of fish. And you, again, I see all this kind of fishing that you do, but I do got to wonder, do you have a species of fish for you that's kind of like, I don't know, like the one, like what's most near and dear to you? Like it's kind of like your fish.
That's hard. That's like kind of asking, like favorite movie or favorite song, because it's like I'm like the ADD with the fishing, so it's hard to pick one. If I had to say if I could only like fish for one, that's even hard. Can I just say like salmonids in general, trout and I love lake trout fishing. I know a lot of guys think that's like watching paint dry, the vertical jigging thing on the watching your electronics and whatnot. I can't get enough of lake trout jigging on light line. And then brown trout probably are like, there's just some mystery. They're mysterious, like this like tiny stream in the wilderness somewhere. And then there's this rare 126-inch wild brown that's just somewhere out there under a little root ball, that's too smart for everybody else. There's just something about browns. I really love fishing for them, and I just have a lot of respect for those fish. They're badass fish.
And do you have an agenda just for the remainder of the year? We're talking. We kind of talked a little bit about things that you hope to do before you die, but what's this year looking like? We're halfway through the year, but
and I don't know what it's like for you guys down south. I think July and August are probably my least favorite months to fish, up the Northeast. I'd rather fish in January and February, honestly. But I am excited for September through December. I know we're planning to get down to Virginia, try to get on some bull redfish on the kayak. That's a trip that's definitely coming up. And then another one is, I know, the king salmon run's about to start. And I know that's kind of not really your traditional fishing. A lot of guys floss and fish up there, and it's just kind of like a boys' weekend. But something I'm planning to do, I want to get up to the estuaries up there on the kayak and actually try to get on like a casting or jigging bite on spoons for the king salmon while they're staging up there.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two big things probably in September. 2 trips I'm going to be doing. And then, October, November, it's probably going to be lake run brown trout, doing some steelhead fishing. And then as we get, more into the wintertime, the colder it gets, some musky in between all of that. And then it's probably just going to go down to, brown trout fishing all winter. So, yeah, but that's the itinerary as of now, what it's looking like.
Well, even down here in Florida, I'm kind of the same way. Like this time of year, it's mostly just the heat. I don't know, dude. Like this, for whatever reason, this summer has been so much worse. Like the heat is unbearably
It's rough out there, man. Yeah.
Oh God, but our winter fishing's phenomenal.
I was gonna say what do you got, 70 degrees down there?
Yeah, it's not even like everything's spawning in like January and December, and like a lot of our bigger migrations are like bait migrations that you see along the coast are usually that's more of a fall thing. We do a lot of the land-based Goliath stuff more in the winter months anyway. But yeah, I'm the same way. It's like I'm to the point where I'm going to start traveling up north during the summers because it's brutal. And you mentioned a lot of fish I've never caught. I've never caught any of these. Well, I've caught brown trout and stuff, but lake trout, musky, pike. I've never caught any of those. I need to cross a lot of those off before I start doing some of these bigger travel trips, I think.
I'd be happy to help you out. I know we have, like how I was saying, we're kind of centrally located here. I mean, we're like only an hour and a half from probably like one of the most southernmost populations of lake trout, if I'm correct. But then, yeah, there's some northern pike fishing and whatnot too, not too far away. So come on up and get them.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that's what I was just interested in. And I know before we started recording, you had brought up, this is always an interesting one to me. Like, it kind of goes back, I think, to the kayak fishing thing, like being a little bit more, and I don't know if you mentioned seeing a bear, your first bear. I don't know if were you in the kayak when you saw that? Well, where were you? Driving, or were you in?
No, I was, this was last Thursday. I was fishing like a new, trout stream, up in the northeast Pennsylvania. And you'd kind of hike in. It's kind of like a gorge situation. And I think where I was probably about like a mile from the closest road, which was like the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just down there fishing, and I'm like, man, if I'm gonna run into a bear, it's gonna be. I've never even seen one in the wild. I was like, it's probably gonna be here. And then I'm fishing this hole, and I hear a noise next to me, and I'm like, oh, it's probably a deer or a raccoon. And I look up, and 30 feet down the bank, looking through the bushes at me, is a big old black bear head staring at me. And I was like, that's not good. And then I saw she had 2 little cubs in tow behind her. So then my heart started, pumping after I saw those cubs. At least I wasn't in between them or anything, but it was pretty surreal. I mean, we kind of just stared at each other in the eyes for a good 20, 30 seconds. We were both kind of waiting to see, what the other one was going to do. I hear all kinds of things about black bears, that they're not dangerous, but then I also hear that they're the most willing to attack.
Yeah, that's what I've
humans, especially when they have cubs. So I just kind of, did the yo bear thing, yelled at her a little bit.
Yeah.
Backed away slow. I was like, do not, don't run. Don't make yourself look like prey. I when I'm, out fishing by myself or, somewhere secluded, I do concealed carry, but I would never want it to come to that, with a beautiful animal. Plus, I don't think the 9mm would really do anything anyway.
Yeah, so, the noise might get them on.
Yeah, just what I mean. But yeah, that definitely got my heart racing a little bit. So, we fish in New Jersey so much. I'm surprised that hasn't happened before, because I know they have like the highest population in the country. So
yeah, that's one of the ones I've always said to people, like, for whatever reason, like I can be around alligators and snakes and stuff like that all day long, no problem. Even wading through the water, like waist deep alligators around, I'm cool with it.
Really, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not used to that. I'm not Florida boy enough for that shit. But
something about the idea of being essentially naked, like if you're unarmed and like you're just in the woods, like in the same, like on the same level playing field as a bear. I'm like, ooh, but then all the guys I talk to that are from like bear country are, oh, it's nothing. I guess no big deal.
They just see them all the time. And
so I'm like, well, maybe it's like their version of an alligator, because down here it's like, I'll step over an alligator and keep on going. It's like,
they just don't. They're not really looking at you.
It's like a damn turtle, basically. It's like seeing a bird. At some point, it's like you just, I don't know. It's just.
I feel like every time I'm down in Florida, like peacock fishing or something, I'm always looking side eyeing, looking for alligators. I'm always worried about it, but I guess they're just not really that big of a threat,
There's plenty to see. No, I've never had an issue with that. They'll get a little frisky every now and then in certain areas that get a lot of fishing pressure. Like they know to come take, like they know they can just take your fish. But but yeah, never had issues with that. But yeah, that's interesting. So we talked about some of the future plans, some of the fishing trips you want to do going forward. Now, when you talk about leaving the country, how much of that is like wanting to get with like an established lodge, and how much of that, because you seem very much like the DIY type, you know what I mean? I think that separates you from a lot of, a lot of people are like, oh man, I love traveling. I love going across the country, but it's becoming, you embed yourself in some lodge and being chauffeured around by a guide, which there's nothing wrong with. I think it's awesome to support people who are, doing that for a living.
Right. But, as a business. But I think if it's a possibility to do something, if I do enough research and it's safe enough, to do it DIY, that's the route I'd prefer to take. If I'm in like the Congo or Africa or something like that, I'm not going to be out there, by myself, freaking trying to, go catch fish. But that's something we definitely lean towards. I mean, that's the way I'd prefer to do it. I don't know that I almost feel like sometimes getting guided kind of like takes something away from it in the end. But there's also situations where it's like, how else are you going to, it's so astronomically, difficult in certain situations to go spend all that money, travel for a week, and then try to make that happen,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is like a lot of those kinds of trips, some of the areas that you mentioned, it's like when you go into an area where you don't speak the same language, you might even be in a territory that's like run by indigenous groups, like you're not even legally allowed to be there. But I feel like those kind of places where you go, like, let's say you're going to like the Amazon or something, you're really, I don't know, at least at that point, you can kind of like pick an outfit that's like rustic enough.
Yeah, you're hiking in places, or you're taking a tiny little boat,
Yeah. But yeah, man, I'm all about that stuff. I feel like it feels like you're starting to see more people getting into being interested in that type of fishing. So it's like an interesting time right now. I don't know. It's like I've seen you chasing a lot of these obscure type of fish or non-game fish, and it's like you're seeing more and more of it. It's finally getting promoted more and more. So it's pretty exciting times. I guess if there's a silver lining with social media, I don't know if it's that it's like encouraging other people to do it, or if it's just unveiled the people that were always doing it. But,
yeah. I mean, even like fly fishing with carp and stuff like that's. Mm-hmm. Got a little following, that wasn't a thing really.
It's definitely become a lot more socially acceptable, because I guess in the past, like the social setting to talk about that was those old school bait shops, like you're talking about in South Carolina, where maybe you're a little bit more likely to have people be like, what the hell?
Yeah, like I got a crack out of that. Yeah,
you're getting a lot more interest in people online. Hence me and you meeting, and I think it's awesome. But I know we've sat and talked about, and I'm getting short on time, and I don't want to eat too much of your time up, but we've sat and we've talked at length about some of the fishing that you've done. you're all over the place. You know what I mean? Like you're traveling all over the country. I know there's more rhyme and reason to it than maybe I put off, but the kind of fish that you catch are just freaking awesome. And like I said, I appreciate you taking some time to talk to me about it, because I want to encourage more people to start entertaining the idea of expanding beyond like their comfort zones and what they know to try different kinds of fish. But if somebody's interested in seeing some of the huge striped bass you've caught, the snakeheads, the fishing down in Florida for tarpon, some of the shark fishing, the lake trout, the list goes on. How can people find some of the fish that you've caught, like social media wise? Like where can they find you?
Right. Me and Kate are just on Instagram. It's Tight Lines Philly. I try to post some video content and stuff like that to keep it interesting. I don't want to, it's a lot of grip and grin, kind of like a collection of, what we do. But I try to keep the posts, somewhat informational and interesting to read. You know what I mean? And we've thought about doing some YouTube stuff, but like we were saying with the podcast, you being a dad, it's hard to find the time.
That is a hard one. That's one I think in 2024 I may try to ease into, but it ain't gonna be the
whole production. Video. I think video editing's fun, but I would probably enjoy it, but it's like finding the time.
I think it would be more for me than for anybody else. It's like I like to capture I don't know, man. Like my time on the water is very important to me and very valuable to me. So it's like if nothing else, it's sort of like capturing. It's like a video journal of sorts. It's like, at least you can go back and watch it. But you ain't gonna see me out there like having confrontations with Karens and doing silly stuff. Like
you got the video clip of the glowing fishing rod, and
so therefore I'll never ever make it as a YouTube person.
I don't, and then that's the other thing. I'm like, does the world need more fishing YouTubers? I don't know, but I like what you're doing with the blog stuff, man. I read the Gulf sturgeon one that you did. That was bad.
You know what? I'm happy. I was so happy about that, and now I'm upset about it because I know 5 guys that have gone and done it. And I'm like, damn, I'm not special anymore.
There's always there's always gonna be somebody else. You know what I mean? But
I was like, I guess it wasn't as much of a fluke as I thought it was. But anyway, yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on here. I've been a fan of watching your stuff for a while. I'm like, this dude's awesome.
Likewise,
you and Caitlin, and that's even cooler. It's like, maybe we'll do it again sometime. It's like you want to see a little bit more like the female representation in the sport as well, like authentic, like real female anglers. I'm a father of daughters, so it's like, he's trying to cultivate.
Yeah, there's not really enough of that, and enough of it that's portrayed correctly. She's actually out there tying leaders and making decisions and catching fish and playing fish correctly. And and that's another one. If people want to go and see her stuff, it's like, hell, my God, she's got a lot of better stuff than I call. There's huge flatheads and stuff. Somewhat recently, I'm like, geez, like that's a real angler, not the gimmicky. Anyway. Yeah, not in the bathing suit with a dead fish on the front of the boat kind of thing or something, but just what people's motivations are, and both of y'all seem to do it in a pure way, and that's the kind of voices that I want to have on this podcast. And it's growing. The interest is clearly there. I'm getting a lot of good feedback so far, but I always want to find more guys like you. So I appreciate you coming on here, being humble enough to come on here. Oh man, I really appreciate you having me. It's just if you're not having fun while you're out there, then it's what's the point of it? So for sure, everyone just do what you love. Yeah, we'll bounce some ideas off of each other. I think we're cut from the same cloth. If you ever have some ambitions to go catch a 350-pound Goliath grouper out of a kayak, I know some spots. I know some really, really productive spots where I can guarantee I don't know if you'll stay in the kayak. I might have to get some outriggers, or what I mean? I'll get a couple outriggers on that sucker. Wear a life vest, but I can tell you right now, I know some spots very close to shore where if you're crazy enough, I don't know, man, but bring a video camera because I want to watch. I think I'd be too scared. I'll have the GoPro rolling, man. I know some spots if you want to do something insane. But anyway, Mike, I appreciate your time, and dude, we'll be in touch. Likewise, man. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure. And look forward to seeing more of your stuff as well.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, take it easy. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Boundless Pursuit. Tune in each week as we bring stories and insight from uniquely talented anglers and outdoorsmen. And if you enjoyed this show, I want to hear from you. Be sure to leave a 5-star review, as this is going to drive the growth and exposure of this show. And if you have feedback or guest suggestions, I would love to hear from you. And you can reach me at boundlesspursuitfishing@gmail.com. For all other collections of media and contact information, please visit www.boundless-pursuit.com.